We all know you want a child.
Before our
Do it
wedding.
again. Now, what did you get for your birthday?
Thank you. Huh?
What'd you get for your birthday?
That's nice.
Don't expect
You
anything
guys
from
get
Oh.
me.
to see our beautiful faces.
I'm sorry, I have no
What?
money to spare. Kind of putting something together.
Isn't that what every sister avoids?
Well, as
Yeah.
they say, 10 years ago we had Johnny Cash, Bob Hope, and
Oh
that other
goodness.
dude.
Oh.
Steve Jobs. Wow,
Steve Jobs.
I can't believe I
I'm
forgot that.
If
impressed.
you're gonna
And
tell a
now we
joke,
have
tell it
two
right.
jobs.
TJ, did you come up with that joke?
Nope.
No, you didn't.
No, actually I
I
did.
don't even know what it is. Oh. Well, the niceness lasted for about 3
5
seconds.
seconds.
It did. Hey, it's an improvement.
It is.
I hope that you're writing as some of you are talking.
I
Of
know
course.
you're
I was
insulting.
totally right.
Yeah.
Right now I am.
Just add bless your heart to anything you say. It's okay. No,
That's
it's
what.
not.
See?
Or add a smiley face.
All
It
the
doesn't seem
teachers
quite
say
as
this
rude.
now.
Okay, okay, okay. Well, of course they're gonna say Millie.
What? Alright, so you're gonna use some. Add a little smiley face. It makes them think that I'm actually joking, even though I'm really not.
Okay.
See? Now we all know.
In triangle ABC, A is 2, B is 3, C is 4. Those are all on my sides. And then I'm given one angle, and I'm told to solve specifically for another angle. So I'm going to go ahead and label my figure here. A,
Actually,
B,
could be
C.
angle. Could be angle A or. Oh, never mind.
Okay, when you draw your triangle, that's what it should end up looking like. Or something like that, at least labeled the same way. And then, since we're in the section using law of signs, we're going to use law of signs to set this up. So, since we're given, or I guess let's say this. Well, if I gave you a choice, you'd use law of cosines. Because you're only given one angle. But in this case, I'm not giving you a choice. We have to use law of signs.
Oh.
So, what
Well, you
should
can
my
choose.
first fraction be?
2
Sine of
over...
20.
Or,
Wait a
yeah,
minute, wait a minute.
28.
Please release all freshmen to the commons You're at not this freshmen. time. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Goodbye.
Yes, Brett.
Couldn't you use both, though?
What do you mean?
Couldn't you use both forms? I wish I could go. It's
Do
just
we
so
over?
much
Use
You
easier.
could.
cosine and.
Yeah, I mean, you could use law of cosines here, and that would actually be the easier method. But there's a reason why I'm making you use law of or sines here.
Either way, it's just not making
Yeah.
much.
Would we get
I
extra
do
credit if we
actually
did
have
both?
to make sure that there's a yearbook stuff, and I don't know how.
Okay. What's my first fraction?
I have a reason to leave, and I didn't even know.
Sine of 28.96 over 2.
Over 2. Since you're given angle A, I would make that your first fraction. Is that you set up the ratio sine of A over A. And then since I'm solving for angle B, then my next ratio should be sine of B over
Over
B.
Of course you expect the same.
And so sine of 28.96 over 2 equals sine of B over 3. And then normally at this point we do what?
Cross multiply.
Cross multiply. So you get 3 sine 28.96 equals 2 sine B. And then to solve for sine B, you divide both sides by 2. Now, we're going to go ahead and do that and punch out a decimal. Make sure you're in degree mode. And you should get 0.726 something. So I'm going to write 0.726 here, but I'm going to use the whole decimal when I actually find the inverse sign of both sides. So we're going to take the inverse sign of both sides here. Or the arc sign, if you want to think of it that way. And you get B equals the inverse sign of 0.726, which, if I do that in here with the whole decimal,
46.576.
yeah, 46.577,
If you round.
if you round up. So B is 46.577 degrees.
This round sucks bacon.
If we don't round and we're off by a 1/100th of a decimal, will you mark us down?
What?
If we don't round, like, I wrote down 46.57, and if you round it, it's actually 46.577. Would you mark me down for anything?
I want, on the AP test, you have to have 3 decimal places. And they don't care if you round or if you truncate, but you have to have 3 decimal places.
And truncating means cut it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you could write .576, or you could write .577. They would Now, in this case, we do have to find the other, and this is why we did the warm-up that we did. The last two questions, the first answer you got is the answer in the first quadrant, but with sign, you would also have an answer in the second quadrant, because that's where sign is positive as well. That still works in a triangle situation because it's still less than 180. So you could look at this like your reference angle, and you could take 180 and subtract that. Now we're not doing the whole general solution here because I don't want like multiple answers. I just need my answer in the second quadrant, my answer in the first quadrant. This first time you do this is going to give you the answer in the first quadrant, and then subtracting that reference angle from 180 gives you the answer in the second quadrant. And if you do that, you get 133. So you can say B could equal 46.577, or B could equal this. Now, why are there two triangles possible here?
Because sign is positive in two quadrant.
Could you have this angle be 133 and still be able to find an angle for angle C or whatever? For angle C?
No.
Yes, you could, because they're both answers. They both work.
Yeah.
Wait.
133 plus 46.577 plus 28.96. Does that add up to 180?
No.
No, it doesn't. It would be more than 180. So then we have to determine which answer is my answer here. I am given one angle of 28.96. That's across from the smallest side, isn't it? Okay. And so my angle B, that's across from 3, from the medium. So shouldn't C be my largest
Yes, so it
one?
has to be 46.
So it does have to be this one. Because if it's 133.423, that's going to be my biggest angle. That would have to be across from the biggest side.
So it can't form two triangles then?
You can always get two answers, because there is always two possible, but then you have to pick the one that makes sense for your triangle.
That means you have to angle side to side.
They both work,
Yeah.
only one is your actual answer.
Only one is your actual answer. And you have to kind of think logically through, okay, you know, my largest angle has to be across the largest side, so is this my largest angle? And if it is, then you're probably looking at this as your answer. If it's not, then you're probably looking at the other one. So there's two answers possible, or two triangles possible, or at least, let me rephrase. There's two answers possible here because of you having to take the inverse sine of both sides. That's why in this scenario, it's better to use the law of cosines because you restrict that from happening. Like you can only get one answer if you use the law of cosines.
Have us do, like, in a situation like this, do sign, or are you going to give us the option?
Like, are you going to tell us if we're going to do cosine or sine?
I don't for every problem. I think there's a couple where I want to make sure that you're not trying to use the same one every single time. So I think for a couple I say use law of cosines or use law of sines, and then some I give you the option.
But
For this type of one, I would give you the option.
like what I'm saying is, like, for, like, if you had a situation where sign is going, that should be used, then you're going to say use signs for this. Or is it going to be like a situation where you have, like this, two sides?
This type of situation, I might say, like in your notes, I said we're going to use law of sines. But just in general, if I gave this question on a test or a quiz, I'd probably say solve the triangle, and you get to choose the method. And you would have to know in this scenario that law of cosines would be better
Yeah.
because you wouldn't have this happen.
Can you use,
Right.
can't you use law of cosines for everything that you can use sine for?
You can use law of sines and law of cosines for any of these problems. It's just in certain scenarios it's going to be easier to use the law of cosines here because you're given all three sides.
So, what are the advantages of using either? Isn't law of sines kind of like, law of sines is faster at getting like values from different angles and stuff?
You have less you have to plug in, so law of sines is usually quicker. But in this scenario, you have to think through more at the end to decide what is your actual answer.
Yeah.
All right. So yesterday we talked about the area of a triangle using sides and an angle. And with that area formula, the two sides, where did the angle have to be?
In between the two
Yeah.
sides.
In between? In between?
Oh,
Between?
is it 0
call that angle included, right?
Yep.
So today we're going to look at how to use a formula that Hero of Alexandria came up with, guy way back when in Greece. Hero's formula allows us to find the area of a triangle given only its sides. So you no longer need just some of the angles, but you can figure it out with just the sides.
So was Hero of Alexandria?
Was his name Hero?
His name was Hero.
That's ridiculous. Is he a hero?
I don't know.
Okay, haven't you ever seen Heroes?
Yeah.
Yeah, the little triangle guy.
Yeah,
His name
his
is
name.
Hero.
He was Japanese, and his name was spelled with an I.
Okay, I'm so sorry that I don't know this
Why can't I be
Chinese
Hero
Japanese
Six?
pronunciation.
Okay, in triangle ABC, or just in any triangle, Hero's formula states that the area, in terms of just the sides, is S, and we're going to define what S is in a minute. S does not mean sides. S times S minus A times S minus B times S minus C. And then S is half the perimeter. Now, this is one where I don't make you do the proof or even take the time to show you the proof because the proof is pretty long. But this formula does pop up once in a while in a triangle because you do come across triangles even in real life where if you have to measure a certain shape or whatever, you might just have the lengths of the sides. You don't have a big old protractor to measure the angle. So in that scenario, you can still find the area of that piece of whatever by using this formula. And so we're just going to practice it maybe a couple times. I'll do
So is this to find
one
the
with you
area
and then...
when you don't have a degree measure or the height?
Correct.
Okay.
You just have the side length.
Again, when in doubt, call upon the hero.
Yes.
The hero.
Why don't we... Okay, we need to really work on being nice.
Yeah.
Nah, we just need duct tape.
It's a thing we struggle with here.
I don't understand why.
We need trust falls.
No,
There's
I
no
wouldn't-
way I would let
I
anyone
would
try
not.
that.
I don't let any of my family do that. I can't do that.
Oh,
I keep
sorry.
my trust.
Alright.
Probably still
Didn't
doing
catch that.
Wanted to probably get a text then.
So you'll notice here that I don't give you any angle measures. We're going to find the area just using the side lengths, too. First thing that you'll want to do is figure out what S is. S is half the perimeter, so we're going to add up all the sides and then take half of that. So 5 plus 7 gives me 12, plus 11 gives me
23.
23. So S is going to be 23 halves, or 11.5. And then we're going to plug it into the formula. So area is going to equal 11.5 times 11.5. Now what's the ABC? The side length. So 11.5 minus 5 times 11.5 minus 7 times 11.5 minus 11. And it's just punching it out. Now the most common mistake here is just punching it out wrong. So you're just going to be careful. Use parentheses. So 11.5 times 11.5 minus 5 times 11.5 minus 7 times 11.5 minus 11. You should end up getting 168.188.
Whoa.
Is that what you guys got?
Excuse me.
I had 12.
Oh wait, the square root of 168?
I haven't taken the square root yet.
Oh, that was why.
Okay. So underneath the radical, I should have that. And then if you take the square root, whoops. If you take the square root of that answer, you end up getting 12.969.
So we don't have units.
Well, you can just put units squared if you want.
Okay, now I have a question.
Hold on. Okay. Is this the same answer that we got? Oh, where is it?
Somewhere within this package.
For number 5? I know we did this. I don't have the answer written here because that probably shows some of your answers. Is that the same answer that you got on that page?
Is this the 12.966 squared?
Okay. But if you notice for that example 5 that we did in the previous section, we actually had to find an angle first before we could find the area.
So you just do a simple marathon notation?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's actually good enough.
Donnie said
So wait. Oh.
I want you to do one on your own. I'll answer questions here in just a second.
My question was better than yours.
Where do you even take that? Yeah. Just Ross, how do people come up with these formulas?
They were crazy.
They spend lots of time locked in the rooms drinking wine.
Obviously,
Actually going to bars.
Oh goodness.
Drinking wine?
Like that's what everyone
Thinking
gets hammered on
spinach.
these days is wine.
Spinach is brain food, man.
That's
I thought it was
disgusting.
muscle food.
No, it's brain food. Oh, Popeye?
Yeah. His head didn't go.
Now just imagine that. It's funny.
He like chugged it down and down like shoots right up into his head.
All right, as you're talking, whatever you're doing, if you would on your own find the area.
Bonding.
So,
Brad, what was your question?
If we on the test had skipped, like, intercepted, plugged in the square root on the original problem, like with the 11.5
Yeah.
minus, and didn't have like the square root of 168 written on there, would you take points off or no?
Nope. I just need to see the setup.
Okie dokie. J equals 8
Will S always be larger than all of the somehow?
What?
I said will S always be larger than all the others somehow?
It should be.
We've occasionally got one that wasn't
That wasn't?
alias.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't a real triangle. Yeah.
boom.
Yeah, if you get, because what would happen is if it was less than some of those values, you'd get negative numbers underneath the radical, and you'd be able to. As you're finishing, I'll double check here. Okay, is that really good, or anybody else have answers? Do you want to stay punching out?
Times
Maybe
18
another
is
30
14
seconds or
minus
so.
22, 32. Divided by 2.
All right, good. I think everybody's getting the same answer here. So
The what?
you should have gotten
16 minus 32 is
39.191.
Oh.
And if I don't give you units, since you're talking about area, make sure you at least write units squared or least squared or something.
16
That is what you should get.
times 8
You good on that?
One
minus
second.
6 times 2.
What? Oh.
Okay, so 32.
What if we had .192?
32 just rounded off. It's not a
That's
big
fine.
deal. Not that
Yep.
weird.
Well, that's not what I had. That was just asking.
Equals
Yeah.
50.
All right, and then flip the page. We have one more page. This is the last page of your trig notes.
Well, it is.
Well,
Maybe
unless
not, yeah.
we like take trig again. Like if we put J. Wait.
You're gonna hit your calculator.
Thank you.
Don't stop making fun of me.
Not that you had a choice. I'm
TJ,
sure.
that's not what's funny. I'm like, honestly, boys. You're right there.
What's so funny? Honk,
So stupid.
punk. I wrote Egypt instead of writing Antarctica. Laughing at my
Okay, last page here.
Yay.
Won't take us long to talk through.
Hold on.
Okay, I need you to draw this picture. It is meant to have this little piece hanging off here. Okay, from one end of a long segment, we'll draw an 80 centimeter segment at 26 degrees. So that's obviously not drawn to scale, but 80 centimeters. And then to complete the triangle, we will draw two segments. One being 50 centimeters. And then this would be the other segment. To complete the triangle. Now, notice, well, maybe you haven't noticed, but we've kind of talked about the fact that when we do law of cosine, and even when we were working with law of sine, a lot of times the angle that we're given is the included angle. two sides, you can actually make two triangles with those two sides. For example, if you were to take this piece and slide it along that segment, watch the screen please, along that segment, could you still draw another triangle? Like right now we probably have an obtuse triangle.
Yeah.
Could I slide this and make an acute triangle?
Slide what one?
The 50 centimeters, couldn't I slide it along this
Yeah.
length
But
to
you'd
make
still
an
have
acute?
you'd have two tangents now. Like two lines going off, right?
Oh hey, I made a great triangle.
I would have, well, let me draw another picture.
Okay.
Are you saying make the
You're
50
make the
shorter?
Oh.
make that angle
Not that.
make that angle different. I got you.
Are
Oh
you
boy.
saying like make the you'd have to scale down the 50
Like kind of
to
put
fit
it
in?
No, not scale down to 50. Ignore my scribble.
Ignore your scribble.
Yeah.
Ignore the scribble.
You could have this angle still be 26
Oh man, that's
and this still be 80 centimeters. And you could take that 50 centimeters and you could slide it, and couldn't I draw it so it's more like this and have it be 50 centimeters still?
You could.
yeah.
Wouldn't it have to
Yeah,
wouldn't it be like
Fractionally,
trailing
like
off?
how can you do that?
Like wouldn't a
the
part of the
distances.
50 be trailing off?
No, there's a
Because the 50 isn't its height.
No, it's not as height.
So how can you fit it in there?
Well,
Oh wait a minute, I see what you
I'm
did.
saying, okay, you're just envisioning it sliding and fitting. For a little bit as you slide it, it would be hanging off the end of
So
it.
this
But
part-
eventually you would get it so it would connect back to that line segment, and you could draw in a 50 centimeter segment that makes an acute triangle instead of an obtuse.
this cross. Ta-da.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
see that
So when
just
you're
at
doing
these
that,
angles.
aren't you taking like the 50 sides, how that line, that whole line going there like this?
Yeah.
Aren't you just flipping it into the same
I think
triangle?
once I see
Yeah.
why we're doing
I
it.
see what you're doing. So you're you're switching around the supplementary angles.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yep.
Hmm.
But that is why in geometry you cannot use side-side angle as a proof for congruency, because there's always two possible triangles that you can draw with those two sides. So, this is called the ambiguous case. What does ambiguous mean?
Not clear, sort of vague.
confusing.
Sort of vague.
Vague.
Okay. So ambiguous means that it's not one way, it could be two ways. It's just kind of, you're not sure one way or another. So we're going to look at a situation where this might occur and how to handle it if it does. So we're just doing one example together. If we can focus a little bit better than some of us are. In triangle XYZ, X is going to be 50 centimeters. Z is going to be 80 centimeters. And angle X is going to be 26 degrees.
Where'd you get these values?
Find possible sides of Y. And maybe I should say possible lengths of Y. Now, since we already have the triangles drawn up at the top, I'm not going to redraw the triangle. And since I'm given two sides and an angle, I'm going to set this up using the law of cosine.
So you're gonna have two answers.
I'm going to have two answers. Alright, so I'm going to set this up. I'm going to have x squared, right? Because my angle is x and I have side x. So on the left-hand side of that law of cosines, I'm going to have to write the 50 squared. And then you have 80 squared.
50 squared is just 2,500.
Plus.
Hold on. Plus y squared, right? Because I'm looking for side y.
Right.
And then we have minus 2 times 80 times y times cosine of 26. Okay, let's simplify as much as we can. So 50 squared,
2500.
2500. Then we're going to subtract 80 squared.
6400.
What?
80
Which-
squared is
Oh, 80.
6400.
I was like,
Which gives me that. Like if I take this and subtract 80 squared, I get that. I'm going to keep the y squared here on the right for a reason here in a second. And then can't I simplify this? I do have a variable still, but aren't these all numbers? 2, 80, and cosine of 26?
yeah.
I can punch all those out. So I'm going to multiply 2 times 80 times cosine of 26, and I end up getting negative 143.807. Why? What function do I have now? Quadratic.
Oh my gosh.
So,
I've never
we're
been
gonna
happier with the
algebra.
like
I think we can have
never been so happy.
So when we have a quadratic, you have three ways or three options to solve. You have factoring.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Probably not going to want to factor this because of the decimal. You have completing the square, and you have the quadratic formula. My suggestion is use the quadratic formula because you have decimals, and that's probably the easiest, fastest way to do it. But before you use the quadratic formula, we have to make sure everything is set to one side and equal to 0. So I'm going to add 3,900.
Is it raining?
No, it's windy.
Is it like blowing a wet
I don't know. Quadratic formula, if you have forgotten it.
X equals negative b.
No.
Continue.
Minus radical b squared minus 4ac.
Over 2a.
I'm sorry.
Algebra 1.
Wow.
Mr.
Excellent.
Felposh showed it to us.
My goodness.
Mr.
Hey.
Felposh taught you that? Yeah, Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Felposh.
He made them watch the video like 10 times.
Yeah.
Thousand.
And then we had to sing it over and over again until we could all remember it.
That's funny.
Big word.
All right. So your A, what is your A value here?
1.
1. Your B is
Wait,
negative,
why is that 1?
because the 1 is right. There's
Right.
understood to be 1.
The other day.
So 143.807. And C is 3,900. Go ahead on your own. Plug those in for A, B, and C. And punch it all out till you get a couple decimals.
My old math teacher, Mr. Munoz, he didn't bother singing the song. He was mean.
Obviously you
I can't understand why you guys don't get this further along. Whoa, Mr. Munoz. We just got here. He's probably stressed. He has several
Are you
homework.
singing it?
Huh?
Are you singing?
Slightly. I contemplate the song in my head when I'm writing it down. It just happens. It's stuck there.
It's stuck.
That's what I'm gonna use to sing my children to sleep.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
They're
Yeah,
gonna
they
love
have a part
that.
in their coat in case
Exactly like that.
Yeah.
Can I just say I'm sorry? I was a part of working on that.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but
it makes a liter bottle of
Coke.
yeah,
The only math song.
for like
We never
for
learned a math song. The only
Yeah, I never got
like,
the song.
it makes like
the only
22
sort of
liters
rhyme
and
that I
it's for
remember was
like
that big
$4.99.
fractional minus back. That's the only thing that I
The only thing I
actually.
remember was when supposed to do.
Oh my goodness.
I remember in
Cotton
6th
bird.
grade saying to Steve, my niece's name.
Oh yeah. Sally.
Ew.
But
Bless
she's
you.
Sandy.
Thank you.
Her name was Sandy.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Sally. Sorry.
Wait, what?
Alright, do we have some answers?
Not yet.
I do.
Okay, keep moving on.
I
Of
have
course
some
you do,
answers.
Connor. You going to see Breaking Dawn tonight, Miss Cross?
You know what?
Breaking Dawn?
Breaking down.
Break it down.
Breaking
You're not gonna go see
down.
Breaking Dawn?
Oh, just my homework.
Breaking down, breaking down.
I hear it's gonna be.
No talking until you're done.
Sorry.
But I am done.
No one
I
likes.
was done.
That doesn't make any sense. Oh. Nice. Okay.
These are the two possible side lengths of Y.
Oh.
Yep. Because this would be the Y side in my figure. So you could have 107 point whatever, or you could have, what was the other one, 36?
Wait, what?
Yeah, I get it.
326.
Like undisputed.
So technically, you could use side angle to prove that a
What are
triangle
the
is
answers?
true if you knew that one of these answers made that true.
Last
Right.
year I got 107.542 and
For this exact
326.264.
I think maybe you wrote it down wrong.
Come on, TJ.
Because it should be 30.
38.
36.265.
Hey,
36.
Okay, I want, for
Oh.
Brad's question,
Um.
everybody give yourself a round of applause for finishing your signal. Brad's gonna ask you questions, and then I'll give you an instruction.
And we know
Sorry to
all
make
of what he...
things back up, but would that one have to be inverted though because
I've got this
largest angle's right there.
Alright, now here's your ORP.
Oh,
Well,
that
the
would
first
stink.
Yeah, right.
You definitely
Here's
want it. The
your
second picture
ORP.
has to be
Do it.
Have a fun weekend.
Now.
Alright.
Over Thanksgiving.
It's still recording.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
If that's the order.
I'm going to give you a number.
And if you choose
If you get an
quickly, you
even
don't have
number,
to
you
do
get
the
the ORP. If
ORP.
you get odd,
I'm
there's
gonna
no
give you a
homework.
number. You need to remember your number. 1, 3, 4. TJ, you're 4.
What?
5, 6, 7. 1,
8.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? Get with your number, person.
Wheel 3.
3.
4.
TJ.
Okay.
Get with means you'll probably have to move.
What are you
Ryan
doing?
already had his fire.
And I want groups as separated as possible.
Wait.
Oh.
So we did 4. Does that mean 2 groups? Or wait. Does that mean 2?
I'll pay that.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, none of that.
It's your pain. I really do.
Let's
I'm
see.
sorry.
Okay, so.
I'm really sorry. You can ignore me, you know. I'll just do my own work.
Alright. Copy machine user malfunction. And I copied it wrong. So there's 2 tiles. They're supposed to be stapled together. So one person from each group come and get 2 packets.
Wait, there's supposed to be 3 people
So
in
grab
each?
one piece from each tile. Staple. Keep your tile stapled.
You're not that much older than
Come
me.
on.
2 years. He's like 2 years older than you, Connor.
Yeah, that's
My legs hurt.
Oh.
You need to move.
I don't know, you're sucking.
Good caricature.
Lucky me, I get stuck with John mostly. Nobody feels pity for me.
You get stuck with God.
Oh wait, that was still recording.